In this world, it's important to understand what's happening right now, what has happened, and what might happen. We need to understand the context and the volatility of our lives. To do this, you must consume a speculative fiction. That's a joke. But speculative fiction, or spec-fic, is especially useful, and it's what we're talking about today. Writers of spec-fic deal with worlds which do not yet exist. Did you catch that? Yet exist? Spec-fic does deal with impossible, supernatural realms, but also with something closer to home. I'm talking about dystopia, a spec-fic subgenre. Within dystopia, writers create worlds which, in nasty ways, are socially, culturally, and politically exaggerated, yet extremely recognizable. Why would writers do this? Perhaps they're imparting a warning or a prediction, posing questions about right and wrong, investigating our society's latent possibilities, increasing our gratitude, or inspiring activism. Perhaps they're challenging the very way we think and act. I can think of two texts who do all of the above and more. Suffice it to say, they've changed my perception of the world. We're going to be looking at The Handmaid's Tale, a novel by Margaret Atwood, and V for Vendetta, a film directed by James McTeague based on Alan Moore's graphic novel of the same name. These two narratives have many similarities, but it's their common themes which change our understanding of the world. In The Handmaid's Tale, a theocracy called the Republic of Gilead has overthrown the US. In V for Vendetta, a fascist party called Norsefire has risen to power in England. Back in high school, I had a wonderful English teacher who always told me, context is everything. My God, was she right. Atwood wrote most of the novel in the West Berlin of 1984, influenced by the oppression and censorship carried out in the name of a regime. And the feminist movement of the 80s was pretty much the basis for the book. Moore, living under Thatcher, and McTeague under the Bush administration, witnessed a revival of xenophobic and conservative policy. This inspired their work. Out of the two texts' imaginations of oppressive regimes, a common theme arises. Surveillance is central to oppression. Offred, the Handmaid's Tale's protagonist, knows that anyone could be an eye, a secret police agent. And no one dares dissent, because anyone could be watching, and those who are caught are killed. Atwood uses symbolism to create this feeling of fear. The emblem of the secret police is an eye, wide and staring. It symbolizes something immense, an omnipresent being which observes and records your every move. The eye becomes a motif, appearing on vans, government buildings, uniforms, and even Offred's own body. I quote, "I cannot avoid seeing now the small tattoo on my ankle, 4 digits and an eye." The allusion to Nazi concentration camp procedure and the recurring symbol of the eye enhance the meaning behind our theme. Offred lives dehumanized, controlled, and oppressed by an intricate system of surveillance. Under Norsefire, surveillance is used with equal malice. An early scene in the film sees Evie, the film's protagonist, confronted by two men in an alleyway because she's out past curfew. The scene is in film noir style. McTeague is foreshadowing evil. Upon seeing the men's badge, and on it the emblem of Norsefire, Evie is overcome with terror. It's black and red and familiar. It makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. To Evie and to us, it symbolizes the wickedness of the ruling party. McTeague's characterization of the secret policemen reveal how the Norsefire government treats its people. The agents are creepy, ruthless, and in this scene, they're not afraid to abuse the power granted to them by surveillance. This theme is reality for millions of people. In China, the population is subjected to mass surveillance. Hundreds of millions of CCTV cameras, facial recognition technology, drones, and internet data are used by the Chinese government to subjugate their people. Behemoth online systems have been set up to effectively oppress an entire population. It's scarily similar to what's imagined in our texts. What I got from this was that, as a society, we can't advance blindly into the future. And spec-fic as a genre can serve as a warning of what might happen if we let it. And here's another theme, equally relevant to our current world. A society characterized by widespread suffering cannot last. This theme is really the basis of history, of uprisings and the transference of power. It's used in both texts to shape the meta-narrative of defeating the monster. The ultimate downfall of Gilead and Norsefire has informed my view of the nature of history and of the uncertainty or predictability of the future. In The Handmaid's Tale, Atwood uses a non-linear narrative to chart the insidious development of the Galadian regime. I quote, "We're being fired," I said. I stood up, but why? "Not fired," he said. "Let go. You can't work here anymore. It's the law." This is a flashback to when women first lost the right to work, and we know it went downhill from there. In the novel's final chapter, called Historical Notes, a university professor is holding a presentation about Galadian history, revealing that the Republic has fallen. Atwood's manipulation of time completes the cycle, and it shapes the meaning behind this theme. The very premise of V for Vendetta is overthrowing Norsefire, which is achieved in the end. The battling powers of good and evil are built up by McTeague using historical allusions to the Nazi regime and Guy Fawkes, symbols of depravity in the party emblem, symbols of love in V's Scarlet Roses, and the motifs of surveillance devices and the letter V, which respectively represent oppression by the monster and its subsequent defeat by V's idea of freedom. The story of Norsefire's downfall aligns perfectly with the idea that a society defined by widespread suffering cannot last. Once again, I must add that context is everything. Atwood and Moore were privy to the way that societies changed. They'd just witnessed the rise of communist China, the USSR, East Germany and North Korea. Their world was full of oppressed societies. So, using speculative but recognizable worlds, they showed us that such suffering cannot last. By widening the eye through which we view the world, texts like The Handmaid's Tale and V for Vendetta make us better people. Without the whirlwind of context, language, and ideas about life we explored today, we'd be advancing into the future blindly. And now, with a deeper understanding of how the world works, we're ready to make it a better place.